Alright, so I know you guys have probably missed me talking about actual organisms on this channel, considering my past few videos have just been on the history of paleontology. So today I'm gonna do something a little bit different and give you guys a tour of my fossil collection. Alright, now before you guys say anything like, oh, you're a hypocrite, these were sourced very ethically. I mined them myself. I had professionals watching me, making sure I didn't get anything that would be important. All of these are like invertebrates, so nothing too big. So the first dig was in northern Michigan, and that's where I found most of this stuff. So we're gonna start with these guys. These are bryozoans. Now, I've got a bunch here, so I'm going to show you guys a bunch of them. I also wanted to mention that these fossils are from the Devonian. So we've actually got a bunch of bryozoans here. This one is one of the blob ones. You can see the little bumps here. Then we've got some of these ones. You can tell they're bryozoans and not coral because of the little divots. Coral divots tend to be bigger. These are bryozoans. They're called zooids. Here are some of the fan bryozoans. They're very cool. Here's some more bryozoans. So bryozoans are colonial animals and are sedentary. They tend to live on the bottoms of the ocean and just filter feed with their tentacles. Bryozoans are actually still alive, and they've been around since the Ordovician, but some people suggest they might have been here from the Cambrian. Their evolutionary history is really muddy, but their closest relatives are brachiopods. Bryozoans are mainly eaten by things like starfish, urchins, sea slugs, fish. Basically anything that can eat them will eat them. Despite looking really basic, they do have nervous systems, which things like sponges can't say the same. Bryozoans sometimes have a hard calcified shell, which is why they are able to be fossilized as commonly as they are, because these guys are super common. Bryozoans also have multiple different shapes, including fans, sheets, blobs, which I have all of these. Alright, so the next fossils from the site are rugose corals. Rugose corals take two different forms that I have. Horn corals, which are solitary, and Hexagonaria, which is a genus, and they are colonial, so I'll show you footage of that now. Alright, so here are the corals. We've got a horn coral right here. This was a solitary coral. This is its skeleton. The polyp would have been in here. And then we've got the Hexagonaria corals, which look like this. You can see they would have been in these tiny little holes here. It's actually the Hexagonaria corals are actually the state fossil of Michigan, so it's pretty cool. Here's a better Hexagonaria coral for you guys. You can see the little holes they would have lived in. Then we've got some more, just all around. These are all the individual ones. But yeah. So, rugose corals formed in the Ordovician and went extinct in the Permian mass extinction. Another really cool thing about horn corals that differentiate them from other corals is their skeletons. Their exoskeletons are made of calcite.
Doctor?
Deep substrate foliated calcite.
Calcite.
Whereas modern corals are made of aragonite. They're different rearrangements of the same elements, but it's still pretty cool. Other than this, though, rugose corals don't really differentiate too much from modern corals. So this next group is the most broad I've covered so far, and that is brachiopods. Brachiopods are often called lamp shells, and just like the previous entries, they're sedentary and suspension feeders. Alright, now I'm probably going to show you guys what they look like. Alright, so these are the brachiopods I have. I'm only certain that one of these are brachiopods, and it's this one. This one is genus Cibarella. It's pretty cool, existed from the Silurian to the Devonian. These other ones I'm not so sure though. This could either be a horn coral or a brachiopod. This one is either just a rock or a brachiopod. Same thing with this one. This could either be horn coral or a brachiopod. And this one could either be a bryozoan or a brachiopod, and I'm kind of leaning towards bryozoan. But this one is 100% a brachiopod, and I think it's pretty cool. Now, you might be thinking brachiopods look very similar to bivalves, but they differ in many ways. The main way is in the shell. Brachiopod shells are very symmetrical, whereas bivalve shells are very asymmetrical. Now, like I said, this is the largest group I've covered so far, and it's because it's an entire phylum. They evolved in the Cambrian and still exist to this day. But yeah, overall pretty cool organisms, and the next two are so much cooler, and I can't wait to talk about them. Alright, so this next group is pretty famous when it comes to fossils. I love them a lot. It's, of course, crinoids. Of course I'd have a crinoid. Here's some footage of my crinoid now. Alright, so here is my crinoid. It's a little bit of the stem. It's not like the flower part. Some might say it's pretty small, but I'd say this is average sized, you know. Yeah, just a little segment of the stem of the crinoid. Not too much. I don't know if you guys were expecting more, but yeah, this is my crinoid. Hope you guys like it. So crinoids are often called feather stars, despite being not even closely related to sea stars. They evolved in the Ordovician and can still be found to this day in oceans, which I don't think a lot of people actually know that. Like, you can still find crinoids living and swimming in the ocean. The reason why I said swimming is because although most of them are sedentary, there are some that are free-floating, and they look so weird. Their feather-like structures are used to gather plankton from the water so they can eat it. Crinoids are just so cool. I love how they look. Their stalks are so pretty, their feathers are so pretty. They're so cool. I love them so much. Alright, so this next one is my prized fossil. This is my favorite one I've ever mined. And in fact, it's so big, I don't even have to, like, do a close-up. Alright, here it is. It's in two pieces because it was my first time using a rock hammer, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I broke it in half. This is a stromatoporoid. It's a type of sponge. And the reason why it fossilized so well is because it also has a calcite skeleton.
Synthetic calcites, calcite alternatives, calcite substitutes. I mean, the amount of time spent pondering this grubby little bit of rock is sadly astonishing.
These guys came about in the Ordovician and actually went extinct during the Devonian, meaning this guy was one of the last of its kind. The bumps on it are called mammillans, which the name means exactly what you think it is. And these were used to help it ventilate water throughout its body. This ventilation actually helped it feed because it would suck in water and filter feed plankton through that. Like modern sponges, it helped host a wide variety of animals. They would live inside it and hide from predators in it. These guys were originally thought to be cnidarians, meaning they were similar to jellyfish or coral, but now we know they're actually sponges, meaning this guy didn't have a brain. But I still love him. He's great. Definitely my favorite fossil I have. Yeah, and those are all the fossils I've got from Michigan. Alright, so my forehead started bleeding and we're in Utah now. The first Utah fossil I wanted to talk about were, of course, ammonites. I've shown mine off on the channel before. But now let's get a real deep dive into what they are. Alright, so here are my ammonites on this rock. We've got one right here. This is my biggest one. Nothing else really on this rock. And then, where are they? This is the one I showed off in my Marianning video, but we've got an ammonite here. An ammonite here, an ammonite here, an ammonite here. They're pretty much everywhere on this one, but yeah, they're pretty cool. We'll talk about this guy in a second, though. So, ammonites evolved in the early Devonian and went extinct in the Cretaceous, which is interesting because most of the things I just showed you are from the Devonian, so it's a nice little, it's like poetry, it rhymes. Ammonites were cephalopods that had shells, but they're not to be confused with nautiloids. Nautiloids are still alive. Ammonites are not. Now, most ammonites had like a curved spiral shell, but not all did. Baculites, for example, had a very straight shell. Most ammonites ate slow-moving prey like plankton and stuff like that. But yeah, ammonites are a staple of paleontology. They're fantastic. They're pretty much everywhere. They can get pretty big. Mine are really small, but yeah, pretty cool. Remember I said remember that guy for later? Well, now it's later. Here's more footage of it in case you wanted to see it. Here it is. It's a little spiral shell right here. There's another one right here. Another one right here. Lots of snails. And then I've got a bit of one right here. Yeah, pretty cool. My next fossil is a Cretaceous gastropod. Do I know what kind of gastropod? No. I do know it was a snail, and it lived in some type of water, either marine or freshwater. Like most aquatic snails, it probably ate detritus off of the ground, or maybe waste products from other animals. Now, gastropods as a lineage are extremely old and came about in the Cambrian, but there's not too much more interesting stuff to say about it. It's a snail. I love invertebrates, but it's not the most interesting one. Still pretty cool to look at, though. Now, my last fossil is Gryphea. I'll show you some footage of mine now. Alright, so these are the Gryphea fossils I have. You've got this really pretty white one. You've got this big one. You've got this pretty big one. This one's my favorite. Like, these literally look like normal oyster shells. Like, I could have eaten out of this a few minutes ago, and you guys would have no idea. But, yeah, here they all are. They're pretty cool. Gotta love invertebrates. Gryphea was a genus of oysters. They were nicknamed devil's toenails, which I think you can probably see why. My only criticism with that is that doesn't the devil have hooves? Also, belemnites were called devil's fingers, and these are devil's toenails. Can I just assemble organisms to make, like, can I just make the devil? Like, I take these, I find something called the devil's leg, and I just make the devil. Gryphea came about in the Jurassic and lived up until the Eocene, meaning they survived the KPG mass extinction. Mine are from the Cretaceous, though, so these ones did not. Gryphea used to be thought to prevent rheumatism in England, but they don't eat them. They don't prevent anything. They're just oyster shells. But they're pretty cool oyster shells, all things considered. Alright, so that's my fossil collection, but I've also got a bone collection, which is a totally normal thing to have, right? Like, I'm not weird for that, right? If rocky bones, like, you're fine with bones made of rock, but bones that are still bones freak you out, I'd click off the video now, because that's what these are going to be. This segment's going to be a bit more rapid fire. It's not going to be as in-depth. I just wanted to show off the cool bones I own. I constantly see bones in the woods, but I rarely take them home. These few are the ones that I'm like, ooh, I should take this home. Safety first, just because I've cleaned these bones thoroughly, but just in case I didn't, will protect myself. Alright, first bone. This is cursed, apparently. Fuck. Alright, I've got the camera set back up. This is a deer's leg bone. Everyone knows what a deer is, white-tailed deer, herbivores. I found this along with a scapula, some vertebrae, but I decided to keep this one just because it's cool. It's a bone. Yeah. This next one. This, I think, is a raccoon's bone. Raccoons are herbivores. Raccoons are omnivores. They're not the highest on the food chain. They get eaten by a few things, but this is a raccoon's bone. Alright, so then these ones are the foot bones of a rabbit. They've still got some fur on them. I have a bit more, but one of my friends is turning them into earrings right now. But yeah, these are the foot bones of a rabbit. Pretty cool. Alright, but that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much to Paleo Joe and Matt and Max from Geosplore for helping me ID some of these fossils that I had a bit of trouble with. I'll link their channels in the description. Please feel free to subscribe to them as well. Amazing people. Now, here's the bad part of the end card. I've been feeling really burnt out from these videos. Making weekly videos is really difficult, especially if you're doing all the work yourself. So I'm gonna take a hiatus until like the end of May, just because I need to focus more on school and stuff like that. And I have a lot of fun making these, but I'm just feeling super burnt out. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'll be back in about a month.